Thank you, friend. Shabbat Shalom. I hope you all had a fantastic autumn equinox. The days are definitely getting shorter and in the Northeast, colder. We have pretty well come to the end of the line, and there is so much in that Traveling Wilbury song. You can sit around and wait for the phone to ring, waiting for someone to tell you everything. Sit around and wonder what tomorrow will bring. The end of the line. Don't wait for someone to tell you everything. Don't wait for someone to tell you anything. No one can tell you what you don't already know. Well, it's all right even if they say you're wrong. Well, it's all right. Sometimes you gotta be strong. Well, it's all right as long as you got somewhere to lay. Well, it's all right. Every day is Judgment Day. Today we will look at the 53rd reading or Parsha of the Torah. But I also want to take a brief look at the nature and order of the Rosh Hashanah service, because we are in the period leading to our annual Judgment Day. And even if every day is Judgment Day, these 10 days are special Judgment Days. Friends, you have either just gone or are about to go to one or the other of the Rosh Hashanah services, and your normal 1, maybe 2-hour service has suddenly become close to 4 or 5 hours or more. While the Rosh Hashanah evening services are fairly brief, the daytime ones are not. The evening service is comprised of the Barchu, or calling to prayer, the Shema, the single most important prayer in Judaism, which we talked about a few weeks ago, and which reaffirms and attests to the key tenet of the Jewish faith regarding the singularity of God. The silent standing prayer, the Amidah, which has its own 3 parts and was designed to resemble a servant approaching his master, first offering words of praise, then asking one's petitions, and then withdrawing, giving words of thanks, and then the Aleinu, the our duty prayer, which praises God as it states, it is our duty to praise the Master of all. And friends, the Aleinu was originally only in the Rosh Hashanah service, and then during the era of the great Spanish Kabbalists of the 16th century, it became a part of all the daily services. All of this is repeated more than once during the Rosh Hashanah daytime services, and the Amidah is separately repeated by the Chazan, and then the Avenu Malkeinu, or Our Father, Our King, is said or sung, which is only done at this time in a slow chant of up to 54 verses, many of which are recited responsively. Now, it is a fantastic and moving litany in which we call on God as our Father and our King in a prayer of supplication, which many believe goes back to the time of Rabbi Akiba, who died in 135 of the Common Era and who we often read about during Passover. Then there are the traditional Torah readings, day 1 being the birth of Isaac and day 2 the Akedah, the binding of Isaac, both of which talk of devotion to God. And of course, there is the shofar blowing, which is really the central point of the service. And one of the reasons for the length, friends, is the morning and afternoon services. The Shacharit and the Musaf services run into each other, and yes, you are right, there is much repetition. Now, interestingly enough, twice in the last week, people used the phrase, go big or go home with me. Well, friends, when it comes to this year's Days of Awe introspection, keep in mind, you don't have to go big or go home. Observe in your own way. Go to a service, host a service. Take a walk. Sit and contemplate. Carve out some sacred time for yourself. That is all that is required. If you cannot go to a service, or choose not to go, or do not go because you do not understand what is happening or feel comfortable, or you do go and still do not understand what transpired, remember, your prayers and your observance are individual, and they're based on your kavanah, your intention. God isn't timing you and doesn't care how long or short a time you take for your service. If you want to follow a semblance of the prescribed form, you can do this yourself or with your own group in your own time. And friends, it is far better you do some form of observance because you understand what you are doing and why, and that it is part of your desire to make change in your life. And we talked about it last week, the hirhurei teshuvah, the desire to improve. Almost any service book or the internet will provide you with the 4 or 5 key prayers that you could choose to recite, and you don't have to do them more than once. You don't have to do them all. You should do them in the language of your choice, And there are countless sites that have the Torah story of the day for you to enjoy. And I'm sure there are shofar recordings you can hear, or get one of those little plastic ones and blow. You do not have to go to a service to observe a service. Friends, the Holy of Holies is in your heart. And I can't think of a shofar without thinking of Cole Porter's Blow, Gabriel, Blow. Blow, Gabriel, blow, go on and blow, Gabriel, blow. I want to join your happy band and play all day in the promised land, so blow, Gabriel, blow. Friends, Moses is tired. He's been beat up and battered round, been sent up, and he's been shot down. And here we are at what feels like an epilogue of the Torah, the Song of Moses. Ha'azinu, give ear. This is the 53rd reading, friends, because last week we did 51 and 52. And while this is usually translated listen, it really means give ear. This is really the end. The Song of Moses and then the blessing of the tribes. Now the Torah technically ends on Simchat Torah, which this year will be on October 15th, the holiday which marks the conclusion of the cycle of the public reading. By reading the end and the beginning to show that it continues. There is no end to the book of instruction. But for all intents and purposes, the Song of Moses is the end. And as that last song on the last Beatle album says, oh yeah, all right, are you going to be in my dreams tonight? And in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. I always think of that line. It is one of the truisms of life. I ended last week with Carole King's I Feel the Earth Move because the earth and sky are Moses' witnesses. And friends, when we are whisked away to the Sinai Epiphany, you feel the earth move under your feet and the sky tumbling down, tumbling down. And the weapons of our warrior God, as he says in this song in Deuteronomy 32:26, and all warrior gods, have been lightning and earthquakes. You know, I just recently went and saw King Lear, the story of a father whose children never listen, finally deciding to go and let them figure out life. And I thought about so many of the great Shakespearean plays that have prologues, the function of which is to be the introduction to the story so that you know what it's about. Like last year when I was in London, and I was fortunate enough to get tickets to see Henry V. And it is one of the great prologue plays as the chorus opens, oh, for a muse of fire that would ascend the brightest heaven of invention, a kingdom for a stage, princes to act, and monarchs to behold the swelling scene. Or Richard III, with Richard serving as the opening chorus. Now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by this son of York. And perhaps the most famous of all the prologue plays, Romeo and Juliet. Two households both alike in dignity, in fair Verona where we lay our scene. From ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. From forth the fatal loins of these two foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life. Whole misadventured piteous overthrows do with their death bury their parents' strife. Well, you sure know what's coming. And this technique's not restricted to Shakespeare because all of the great epic poems are like this. For example, the Aeneid. Arms in the man I sing, who forced by fate and haughty Juno's unrelenting hate, expelled and exiled, left the Trojan shore, long labors both by sea and land he bore. Or the Iliad. Sing, goddess, the anger of Peleus' son Achilles, and its devastation which put pains thousandfold upon the Achaeans. Or even the Epic of Gilgamesh, which pretty well predates everything. He who has seen everything I will make known to the lands. I will teach about him who experienced all things. Anu granted him the totality of knowledge of all. He saw the secret, discovered the hidden. He brought information of the time before the flood. And now we have, give ear, O heavens, that I may speak, and let the earth hear my mouth's utterances. Let my teaching drop like rain, my saying flow like dew, like showers on the green and like cloudbursts on the grass. For the name of the Lord do I call, a steadfast God without wrong. True and right is he. Did he act ruinously? No. His son's the fault, a perverse and twisted brood. So opens the Song of Moses. And friends, I read this and I thought of the invocation of the muse and the proclamation of the subject of a great Homeric epic poem. Now, what was that about the story of a father whose children never listen, finally deciding to go and let them figure out life? And I wondered, how would we view the Torah if it were the opening instead of its conclusion? An invocation and summation telling us about these children and how their actions drove their father away. It makes this little song take on deeper meaning. We have the metaphor of rain and dew, so important in the Bible. Rain, the most essential component in a desert agrarian society, and the Bible has oft been compared to rain. Rain is an element that falls from heaven to earth and is seen to connect heaven and earth as the Torah connects God to man. And dew, which heralded and shone on the manna during the desert exile. The rain is falling through the mist of sorrow that surrounded me. The sun could never thaw away the bliss that lays around me. Let it rain, let it rain, let your love rain down on me. Just as rain gives life to the world, in some ways the words of the Bible give life to many. And when I think of these words of Moses and the importance of rain as a metaphor, I'm reminded of Portia's words in The Merchant of Venice. The quality of mercy is not strained, it droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It is twice blessed, it blesseth him that gives and him that takes. Mercy, friends, forgiveness, the greatest underestimated gift God has given us, and one which will be so important 10 days from now. Friends, this is a magnificent Parsha, one which is probably significantly older than most of the book of Deuteronomy. You can tell by the words and names. When Elyon gave estates to nations, Elyon was a Canaanite god, which means the High One. And when you see the term El, it is referring to heights, to mountains. Elohim, El Shaddai, these early names of God from Genesis refer to mountain gods because people believe the gods lived on mountains. And so historians believe Elyon was assimilated into the Torah as God as early as the Judges period, which would be around the 11th century before the Common Era. And other little differences in wording appear. There was a word change in verse 8. The Masoretic text, the one we follow, says, Lemispar Bene Yisrael, by the number of the sons of Israel, which doesn't really make sense when you read it. But the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Septuagint say, Lemispar Bene Elohim, by the number of the sundry gods. Not a great phrase for the early stages of monotheism. But friends, many earlier texts show God surrounded by lesser divine beings. And much of that is in the writings of the Tanakh. We see it via the angels, the description of the layers of heaven and God's celestial throne surrounded by other gods. And this helps explain a Greek text in which this line read, to the number of the angels of God. And this takes us back to Genesis 6, that strange story of the angels of God mating with the daughters of man and creating the race of giants. And so gods became angels in another translation to establish them as angels and not lesser gods, implying God allocated the nations to the angels and kept Israel for himself. This would also help explain the lines in Psalm 82 where God is in the divine council judging among the gods, criticizing them for failing to judge fairly and condemning them to die like humans. It opens, God standeth in the congregation of the gods and is a judge among the judges. And goes on to say, I have said ye are gods, ye all are the children of the Most High, but ye shall die like men and fall like one of the tyrants. And friends, as the song begins to wind down, verses 18 to 20 say, You forgot the God who gave you birth. The Lord saw and he spurned from the vexation of his sons and his daughters. And he said, Let me hide my face from them. I shall see what their end will be, for a wayward brood are they. Wow, what an introduction this would have made. Well, friends, we haven't reached our end yet. We are still in this period of estrangement, and over time it has been called a divine eclipse, Deus absconditus, and death of God. But God has given us what he said he would, responsibility for our world. And perhaps we can only have that when he's hidden. But I'm sure he's watching to see what our destiny will be. And so the Torah ends as we look into the future. The promised land is just over the horizon. Can you see yours? Take the opportunity at this time, my friends, to heal not just yourself, but everyone. Friends, say the healing prayer, the Misha Berach, for everyone and for the world. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal any who is ill. May the Holy Blessed One overflow with compassion upon them, to restore them, to heal them, to strengthen them, to enliven them. The Great Spirit of all will send them speedily a complete healing, healing of the soul and healing of the body for all, among the people of Israel and all humankind, soon, speedily, and without delay. And let us say, Amen. And friends, from me to you, Ketiva v'chatima tova. May you be inscribed and sealed for a good year. Now I know the secret, there is nothing that I lack. If I give my love to you, you'll surely give it back. Let it rain, let it rain, let your love rain down on me. Shana tova umtuka, for a good and sweet year. Blessings to you all. Love you. Thank you for joining me. Shabbat shalom.